So, an upcoming PS4 exclusive called Bloodborne is supposedly having off-the-charts graphics, according to PlayStation executive Scott Rode. Or Scott Rody, however you pronounce this guy's name. I'm taking a look at this article, and it's basically about Bloodborne. Bloodborne is a PS4 upcoming game set to release earlier for next year, early next year, 2015, and it's coming out on the PS4, only on the PlayStation 4, and basically it has a similar style or a similar aesthetic to something like a Demon Souls or a Dark Souls or something like that. I understand it is being developed by From Software, and it's going to be published by SEEA. So you have this somewhat decent looking game, but the fact that they try to put the graphics over like it's the greatest thing just makes me laugh. It just makes me laugh. It's so pathetically amusing, and it's almost amusing, but it's just more pathetic than anything else how Sony has to put over the graphics of Bloodborne like it's the greatest, most visually amazing game of all time. The guy says, oh, it's off the charts, the way it looks, just off the charts to me. Rode said about Bloodborne, it has, I've said this before, there's a certain wetness to that game. I don't know what other word to use. It just feels like everything is dripping and oozing with whatever it is. It's water, it's blood, whatever it is, and it just looks gorgeous. What the hell are you talking about? What the fuck is Scott Rode talking about? This guy is smoking crack or something, like for real? Sounds like he's high and he's like tripping for the first time, and he's like, oh, everything is melting, and I can see the walls melting right in front of me. Oh, my hands are wet and melting. I just don't buy into this. And they did include a trailer for this game. Not a trailer, but gameplay footage, I should say. It's gameplay footage from Japan, actually. Because this is a Japanese game. And it looks decent. It looks okay. The graphics don't look anything remotely amazing compared to even like some fucking more recent 7th gen games, and you know, games for the PS3 and even the 360 and the Wii U. It doesn't look that much better. It looks fairly detailed, and the graphics and the detail and the lighting, it looks pretty good for a 8th gen game and an exclusive. But what the fuck are you talking? You know, a wetness. It looks just, it could have been a fucking Demon Souls, Dark Souls type of like a sequel or something. You know, it may as well be one of those fucking style games, but the graphics don't look anything particularly impressive, and the way that they're basically trying to put it over, try to make it sound so amazing, I'm just not buying it. And they're supposed to, you're trying to make this fucking game run at 1080p and 30 frames per second, so 30 FPS. What the hell happened to higher frames per second? God damn it, man. That's the fucking... Is that the way that the 8th generation is gonna be? You know what I'm saying? The Xbox One and the PS4, even, that generation is so fucking still lacking that they can't do 60 FPS. They can't do 60 frames per second. That's pretty much like the fucking standard now. Like, that's pretty much an average... You know, you could expect the most basic style of fucking graphics and the way that they would run, the way that the game runs, 1080p, 30 frames per second. That's not the fucking... It should be 60 frames per second. Like, that's not... God, that term is becoming so outdated, you know, in 2014. Like, we still don't have 60 FPS. We still don't have 60 FPS as the fucking standard, as the average for a lot of these games, and I don't. It goes to show you how maybe, you know, weak the PS4 is. It's not as strong as they claim it to be. Of course, the Xbox One is even further behind. So all these supposed, you know, current gen systems, they're already outdated. They are not running to the fullest. They don't have the highest frames per second. They don't have the smoothest looking graphics, especially compared to obviously the latest PC engine and the latest PC graphics. That's to be expected, but my god, think of how fucking shitty these PS4 style games are going to be, outdated looking by 5-6 years. You know, they're totally going to be lagging behind what the PC is capable of. And that always seems to be the case. Every generation, that's always the fucking case. And it's just embarrassing. So this guy trying to put over Bloodborne, and like, oh shit, this is like the illest graphics ever. It looks so dope. It has a wetness to it. It looks like your standard action RPG. You know, the gameplay doesn't look that vastly different from the previous fucking games in terms of controls, in terms of its approach, its linearity. It looks like your typical fucking linear action RPG. Enemies, you know, popping out. You gotta fucking beat the enemy. You gotta hack and slash away at the enemy. And it doesn't look that fucking different from previous games. I'm still waiting for a killer app. I'm still waiting for a killer app on the PS4 and even the Xbox One. And I'm still waiting for that hot, fucking amazing brand new IP to take gaming into the 8th generation. We've been getting nothing but 7th gen games for the past year and a half. I mean, the Wii U, obviously, that's further back. The Wii U is always going to be a fucking fossil compared to the PS4 and the Xbox One. The Wii U has lagged so far behind, and now it's 2 years old. It's going to stay in that 7th gen style of gameplay, in that style of approach, because it can't move further. It can't move beyond the fucking 7th gen style. It's not that much more powerful than the PS3 and the Xbox 360. The PS4, this Bloodborne game doesn't look that special either. It doesn't look anything particularly mind-bending or so fucking different from everything before. It just feels like, it looks like a Demon's Souls, Dark Souls fucking knockoff, a fucking rip-off of those games. It just looks like a continuation of that gameplay, of that style, which we've experienced before. So, graphics, you know, great graphics or not, it still doesn't mean that the gameplay is going to be anything special. You got fucking rehashes all the time. You got, you know, the GTA 5s and fucking The Last of Us coming out on the PS4 now, you know. I mean, it's more of the same shit. I don't see a killer app. I don't see a must-have title that we either haven't experienced before, that is completely brand new, or something that is just so fucking fun to play that you gotta get a PS4 for that particular game and experience. So, I mean, I would like to... Let's take a look at the PS3 before I end this video. The PS3 had some pretty fucking sweet games, and it took a while for the PS3 to get fucking rolling and get some awesome games on it. And I would argue it took many, many years. It took more than 2 years. It took about like 3-4 years and before it got rocking and got some amazing games that you can only fucking get on the PS3 compared to the PS2 generation or the Xbox or GameCube. Because for the longest time, it just had a bunch of, you know, generic looking games. It had a bunch of stuff that could have existed in the fucking PS2 era. You know, I mean, games like, let's see, what did the PS3 have? Early on, it had Resistance, okay. Resistance Fall of Man. It's an okay shooter, but it's very dated. It 2006, very 2006. The gameplay isn't this next-gen experience. It could have fucking existed on the N64. You know, it could have existed in the 90s. That's how generic that game was. It's basic first-person shooter from the earlier generation, the early era of FPS. You're just running around shooting at fucking, you know, targets and enemies, and that's all you're doing. You have, what else did the PS3 have? I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, fucking Lair. Lair was a big one, and I think it was 07 when that game came out. Okay, it used the fucking 6-axis, but it was a fucking piece of shit. The 6-axis was a mistake. There's a reason why nobody used the stupid 6-axis after that as a single main way to play a fucking game. You didn't have any more, 6-axis focused type of Sony exclusives on that fucking system. So yeah, Lair was it was a fun game. I mean, I'll defend Lair. I thought Lair is actually a pretty decent game, but aside from having a lot of fucking sprites on screen, the fucking game was your typical riding a dragon flight combat game with some action style things. It was like you're piloting a fucking ship, like a combat ship, a fucking, what do you call those things? It was a fucking flight game, one of those kind of like a air. I was gonna say Ace Combat. That's the one. Air Combat, Ace Combat. Those kind of games, And again, with Lair, it wasn't successful. Most people hated the fucking 6-axis style of gameplay anyway. And they tried, but that was more of a... They tried to fuck with the controls as opposed to having some incredibly innovative thing. It was more of a cumbersome experience. They tried to do a Wii style of, fucking motion sensor type of thing, but they failed to do it. I'm trying to think of other exclusives they had. They had other stuff. They had Heavenly Sword. Okay, Heavenly Sword. I think that also came out in 2007. And it might have been 2000. I think it was 2007. It was just a cheap fucking God of War, cheap version of God of War. It was a poor man's God of War. It wasn't anything remotely amazing. Average, mediocre gameplay, reminiscent of like a crappier Devil May Cry kind of game or a crappier God of War. It wasn't anything amazing. The graphics were okay. The story was probably maybe the most interesting part about the whole thing, and it didn't feel next gen. It didn't feel like an amazing fucking leap into the 7th gen. Oh, the PS3, you gotta get that for Heavenly Sword, you gotta get it for fucking Lair, you gotta get it for Resistance. Yeah, the PS3 struggled. And I see the same thing happening with the PS4. The PS4 has fucking nothing. It's got nothing on it. Absolutely nothing. What, rehashes? What, GTA? Wow. If I'm not already playing that on the PS3, maybe I might be interested on the PS4. But this game's been out for over a fucking year. And everything else is either a shitty port or some generic game like Watch Dogs, Oh, Watch Dogs. Who gives a shit about Watch Dogs? Thanks for watching The Review Space, the most underrated channel on YouTube. For more videos, check out youtube.com/The Review Space.